Here's a useful expression I use all the time, and so on and so forth. It means, and more things like that. For example, if I were telling a longer story where my shopping was a short part of the story, I may say, I needed to buy apples, bananas, oranges, and so on and so forth. It's added to take up less time listing things so I can get on to the rest of the story. I don't want to spend time listing the things I shopped for because the details of the list are not important. So I say I needed to buy apples, bananas, oranges, and so on and so forth. Another example, if I was talking with you about what my friend and I were discussing, I might say he was talking about work, stress, money problems, and so on and so forth. Again, you hear how this phrase is used so that more things don't need to be listed, but it gives you an idea of the theme of what my friend was talking about. Work, stress, money problems, and so on and so forth. In this lesson, I'm going to teach you common English expressions that I use all the time and that native speakers actually use without thinking. I'll give you a simple meaning and a few examples so you can start using them right away. Here's the next expression. From top to bottom. This means completely, thoroughly, or from beginning to end. For example, we cleaned up the house from top to bottom. This means we cleaned the entire house, or that we cleaned the house thoroughly from top to bottom. Or if you were talking about your boss reviewing your work, you could say, she checked the report from top to bottom before submitting it. This means she checked the report thoroughly. Through and through also means completely or 100%, although it's different from our previous phrase because it's usually used to talk about a person's characteristics or personality. For example, if I was talking about someone who loves being an educator, I could say he's a teacher through and through. Or if speaking about someone who is genuinely warm and kind, I could say she's a kind person through and through. She's truly a kind person, one way or another. One way or another means somehow, no matter what. It's used to talk about determination. Although something may be tough, it can be completed. For example, if I'm speaking about a difficult task at work, I could say, I'll finish this project one way or another. This means that whatever it takes, I am determined to finish the project. Or if talking about a problem we are determined to solve, no matter what it takes, we could say, we're going to solve this problem one way or another, when all is said and done. This means everything is finished or considered. This is a helpful phrase that's usually added at or near the end of a story, or near the end of talking about something. For example, if I was talking about a trip that may have had a variety of positive and negative experiences, I could say, when all is said and done, it was a great experience. Or if talking about a decision I made, I could say, when all is said and done, I made the right choice. There were some positives to the choice I made, and there were some things that were not so nice. But when all is said and done, I made the right decision. I wouldn't be caught dead is added at the beginning of a statement and means you would never do something because you strongly dislike it. For example, I wouldn't be caught dead wearing that. This means that I really don't want to wear what we're talking about. Or if we were talking about a friend that hates work parties, we could say he wouldn't be caught dead going to that event. No one's dying, he just really doesn't want to go. For the time being. This means for now or temporarily. For example, if I think you should remain at my home rather than going back to where you live, I could say, stay here for the time being. Stay here for now until a decision to leave can be made later. Or if we're talking about whether I work remotely or if I work from home, I could say, I'm working from home for the time being. This means that I'm working from home now, but this may change in the future. Here's the next one. By and large. By and large means generally or overall. For example, if I was chatting with a coworker in the office about a meeting, after going through all the details, I could say, by and large, the meeting was successful. This is usually said at the end of making your point. If talking about a test a group of students had, I might say, the students did well by and large. This means that overall or generally, the students did well. Next expression, in the long run. This means over a long period of time, especially when you're thinking about future results or consequences. For example, if you're talking about making a difficult decision now that will benefit you later, you might say, this will help you in the long run. Or if something feels challenging in the moment, but you know it's the better choice, you could say, it's a difficult decision, but it's better in the long run. In no time means very quickly. You'd use this when you want to reassure someone that something won't take long. For example, if someone is worried about learning something new, you might say, you'll learn this in no time. Or if you're talking about completing a task faster than expected, you could say, we finished the project in no time. On the spot. On the spot means immediately, without time to think or prepare. This is often used in situations where someone has to respond quickly. For example, if someone asks you a difficult question unexpectedly, you might say, he asked me to decide on the spot. Or if someone gives a quick, confident answer, you could say, she answered the question on the spot. I hope you're enjoying this so far. If you are, please hit the thumbs up and let me know in the comments which of these you've used before. If you are looking for a little extra help in your quest to become fluent in English, check the link in the description for how we can help. Back and forth means going between two sides or repeating something many times, often in a discussion or exchange. For example, if you're talking about a decision that took a lot of discussion, you might say, we went back and forth about the decision. Or if you're describing a long email exchange, you could say, they emailed each other back and forth all day. Up in the air. Up in the air means not decided yet or still uncertain. You'd use this when plans are not finalized. For example, if you're unsure about future plans, you might say, our plans are still up in the air. Or if a schedule hasn't been confirmed, you could say, the date of the meeting is still up in the air. Over and over. Over and over means repeatedly, many times. For example, if you're talking about practicing or repeating something, you might say, I watched the video over and over. Or if someone keeps making the same mistakes, you could say, he made the same mistake over and over. As a matter of fact. As a matter of fact is used when you're adding surprising information or correcting something. For example, if someone assumes something incorrect, you might say, I thought he was busy. As a matter of fact, he's free today. Or if you're correcting someone gently, you could say, she didn't forget. As a matter of fact, she reminded me. In a way. In a way means something is partly true or true from a certain perspective. For example, if you partially agree with someone, you might say, in a way, I agree with you. Or if you're explaining a mixed feeling, you could say, it's difficult, but in a way, that's what makes it fun. At the same time. At the same time is used when you want to show that two ideas are both true, even if they seem to contrast. For example, if you have mixed feelings about something, you might say, I like the idea, but at the same time, I'm a bit unsure. Or if you're describing someone with balanced qualities, you could say, he's strict, but at the same time, he's fair. To some extent means partly, but not completely. For example, if you agree with part of someone's idea, you might say, I understand your point to some extent. Or if something worked only partially, you could say, the plan worked to some extent. More or less. More or less means almost or basically. For example, if something is nearly finished, you might say, I'm more or less finished. Or if something hasn't changed much, you could say, it's more or less the same as before. At the end of the day. At the end of the day is used to give the most important or final point after considering everything. For example, if you're emphasizing someone's responsibility to decide, you might say, at the end of the day, it's your decision. Or if you're summarizing a situation, you could say, we tried everything, but at the end of the day, it didn't work. Finally, all in all. All in all means overall. When you consider everything together. This is often used at the end of a story or explanation. For example, if you're reflecting on an experience, you might say, all in all, it was a good experience. Or if something had both positives and negatives, you could say, the trip was expensive, but all in all, it was worth it. Start using a few of these today in your own sentences, and you'll sound more natural right away. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you'd like to see my next video. Until next time, take care.